The police followed the perpetrator. They surrounded the buildings and demanded to lay down their weapons and release the hostage. A sniper took the perpetrator at gunpoint, and he threatened to kill the hostage. The sniper was asked what the probability of a successful shot was, and he reported that it was no more than 10%. The protagonist said a good advice, namely to calm down, as the sniper will easily shoot him if he continues like this. The criminal told the protagonist to shut his mouth. The sniper told the group to move on to another plan as the criminal had figured them out. The protagonist again gave advice, namely that it is worth to hide in the building that would be easy to shoot from the assault group. The villain shouted and threatened the hero, but eventually they closed in the building. The police did not understand how their plan is so easily revealed, and decided not to risk, as the criminal had a very important thing. The villain looked out the window, and called the police a pack of dogs. He realized that the police have already found out about the thing that he has. The protagonist started teasing the criminal, saying that he was in big trouble. The enemy pointed a gun at the protagonist and told him to shut up. The protagonist asked the enemy to take a closer look at where they were. The criminal didn't understand what that was about, but when he looked closely, he saw a sign that said hospice. The protagonist explained that in this place people live for 2 months at most. The criminal was angry, and the protagonist explained that he had nothing to fear, as he would die soon. The hero asked what kind of valuable thing makes the police do that. The criminal tried to turn around, but the hero grabbed a pillow and threw it right in his face, then instantly was near the enemy and grabbed his hand, and then struck a fairly strong blow to the jaw of the man, then grabbed the arm of the enemy, and a little pulling threw him to the ground, from which he could not even move. The protagonist said that he had little time left to live, and the criminal took 7 minutes from him. The hero found an interesting thing inside the criminal's jacket. The man began to ask to return this thing to him, but the hero not only did not listen to the enemy, but also opened that thing. A little time later his body was covered with an incomprehensible aura. The criminal was disappointed and devastated, and the hero heard a voice that set a record of time travel. The man started yelling that because the hero had just accepted the contract of another world, he would be the end of him. The protagonist kicked the man's head with his foot and said that he was finished. Sitting down, the hero picked up the weapon and said that if the man didn't say everything about this thing, he would die. The terrified criminal said he would tell everything. In the year 2050, a mystical meteor shower changed the world in an incredible way. After it, ordinary people could undergo trials in another world, but they could only return to reality by completing the trials. As a reward, one could receive the riches of the other world, even a cure for all diseases. The appearance of the other world shook the world very much, as people began to attack travelers in an effort to find out a way to get to the other world. After many events, people learned that the key to travel is the account of another world. On the body of people who have the account appears a mark. They move within a quarter of an hour. Later these people began to be called travelers. Time passed. The room burst into the special forces, but looking closely they were shocked, as the criminal was sitting tied on a chair. The protagonist was notified that the journey would begin in a minute. The protagonist learned that no matter how much time he spent in another world, in reality, it would be an instant. When traveling, no items could be taken, only clothes. The protagonist saw that the criminal was taken away by the police, and was sure that they would not touch him for the time being. According to the criminal, the protagonist realized that the ordeal was quite simple, more like some kind of game. The protagonist decided to nail the whole thing, as it's possible to see something new. He has a couple months left anyway. The hero began to be scanned in order to create a character, and eventually the protagonist was moved to a public area, where he found himself among people like him. The system told him that he would be able to see the character's window, and he would only have to think about it. The hero looked around and marveled at the different world. He called up a character sheet where all the stats were incredibly low. So was the inventory. The main character had a paper level, which to him sounded very weak. The guy heard voices behind him. There was a man trying to sell a green level item, but people didn't believe him. The peddler started to tell them that it was a very rare green rank poison weapon. He told them that there were 4 levels of testing: paper, parallel, strong, and brutal. No one passed the brutal one, but the others did. The peddler talked about how he stole this sword from the top 56 of the hate table, and said he would sell it for only 500 points. People immediately started raising their bids, trying to be the first to get the sword for themselves. The peddler was already counting the money he had earned from the newcomers. Suddenly an alarm sounded, and people were a little surprised. Everyone received a notification that a dangerous person had been detected trying to enter the zone. Law enforcement was dispatched. The court force in the safe zone is strong. They discovered the target, the number 1 criminal who had a hate table rating of 1. The protagonist became worried as he thought the guards were moving towards him. The merchant started to run away as he thought it was after him. The knight tensed his leg very hard and jumped with all his might. In the air he aimed his kick, and the peddler assumed that the protagonist was also a criminal as he was running away with him. The protagonist said that was nothing and asked where they could escape the chase. The system explained that the hero was in the index of criminals and was the first with 6 stars, so he should be killed on the spot. If he dies in this world, it will be in the real one. The merchant pointed to a portal and said that they could hide there. One of the knights was prepared before the fall. He made a very strong blow, which flew directly at the hero, and just before the collision, the hero managed to hide in the portal, and in the place of the hit, there was a huge explosion. At that time, the criminal was standing nearby. He was not happy that he had failed. The system explained to the hero that the ordeal on which he got to the brutal level, the reward is a treasure chest with purple level treasures. If he dies, then in life will be the same. The goal was to survive. The hero didn't realize the point that he could die in reality. At that time, the hero found himself in the middle of a scene where a commentator was talking about how they were looking for the perfect candidate for a guy who had just arrived. He called what was happening "Don't be afraid to die." The protagonist didn't understand, as it was said that no one took part in assignments of this level. Everyone looked at the main character, who came from the human dimension. The hero even started posing to the sounds of the audience. They called the hero beautiful and clapped for him. The commentator said that the confrontation would be very interesting and told about the sponsors of this event. The protagonist suggested that it was a blind date program. The protagonist remembered that he used to be called the arsonist of women's hearts. The guy was sorry that due to an injury, he didn't have the opportunity to date fanatics. The commentator decided to show the strength of the candidate, but to a big surprise, he turned out to be only paper level. The audience got even more fired up. It was the first time someone of such a low level appeared on this stage. The protagonist asked the system for an explanation of this strength level. The paper level was the weakest, followed by the parallel, strongest, and violent level, which was the strongest. The protagonist guessed that he was in a test that only the strongest could pass, and if he failed, he would die. The commentator promised that the new candidate will show the best death in the history of the program. The hero turned to the light bulb. He was surprised that he was called so and asked if it was to him. The protagonist said that the bulb would stop talking nonsense and already started dating blind. The commentator said that it was only his hologram and introduced the first girl. He stood in a funny pose, and behind his back the gate started to open, from which the girl number 1 came out. The girl turned out to be Ms. Delicate Red Lips, who looked more like a monster. She sent the main character an air kiss, and he was terrified of the girl with whom he would have to be on the test. The commentator said that the girl feels people's emotions. Also, she likes to ask about her beauty and then eat men. The main character closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He wrinkled his face and said that the girl was pretty. The The commentator started to introduce the second girl. Number 2 was Miss Slender Legs, very similar to Spider-Man. According to the commentator, she likes to lay eggs in men. The protagonist was asked for his opinion about the second contender. The protagonist showed the likes and said that the girl is just a beauty. The commentator said they had a great start and started introducing the third girl. The protagonist thought about how they shouldn't underestimate him. One hen came out of the gate and started to dig in. The third girl was Miss Beautiful Shapes. She is a butcher who has butchered 16 of her partners. The girl started screaming really hard, and the commentator called it a signature battle roar. The main character was shocked. He asked if it was definitely the girl. The challenger made a pitiful face, and she left the stage. The commentator asked the protagonist to refrain from such expressions in the future, or he would be excluded from the program. The protagonist realized that there are no normal girls in their program. The commentator said that the next girl was just to the hero's taste. She was a level above the cruel level. She was on par with the deadly sins of Miss Laziness. The protagonist said that sounded promising. The commentator asked for Ms. Day to come out, but she didn't show up. The commentator said that the girl had a day to show up, and she would be looking for a partner from home. The commentator said that the rules of the game require the hero to spend the whole day with each of the girls. The commentator asked the hero to go outside and spend time with the girls. At that time, there was a court hearing in the public area where the peddler justified that he had nothing to do with it. The guy said he had nothing to do with the perpetrator, namely the hero. The judge said they had investigated and found that to be true. Torgash breathed a sigh of relief. But the judge accused the guy of other crimes of deceiving other people, and he was given 200 hate points and sent into exile to Hate City. The guy was taken by his hood and begged the guards to stop. The man asked the judge if they should continue their search for the man who is the #1 criminal. The judge told him that the hero would die as he was caught in a brutal level of the trial. At that time, in the territory of the trial Don't Be Afraid of Death, Miss Forms was cutting up a dead bear with her bare hands. The girl intended to kill the protagonist for the words he said to her. She didn't know that such a wonderful game could have such bastards. The protagonist received a notification that Miss Beautiful Lips and Miss Slender Legs treat him friendly, but Miss Shape wanted to kill him. The protagonist heard something. When he turned around, he saw first a hand and later the girl herself, who intended to stab him with an axe. She started from the back on the weak man. Just before the blow, the hero asked where the pretty girl, whom he accidentally offended, had gone. After these words, the blow stopped, right near the hero's head. The girl could not understand what the protagonist said. The protagonist started talking about how he had never met a girl like her, and as soon as she got angry, his heart was pierced by the blades. The protagonist assumed that he hadn't considered all the tenderness of the girl underneath such a powerful body. She listened intently. The protagonist said that he had never seen such a girl and started saying a huge number of compliments. She thought about the words said by the protagonist. The protagonist talked about how he regretted that he missed her. After such words, the girl's attitude changed to friendly, and a little time later her attitude changed to infatuation. The protagonist reached for the flower and said that true beauty hides inside and not outside. So he said that beautiful flowers grow in this horrible place. He said aloud that Miss Beautiful Shapes exactly the same flower. The hero heard the girl's implement fall. He looked back and saw the girl who called him brother. Her relationship went to the point of bigotry. The protagonist got 500 extra points for what the girl felt for him. The girl said that it was the first time she heard such a thing about herself, and she decided. After these words, she began to gain a lot of air in her lungs. The protagonist a little bit did not understand what she was going to do, and Miss Beautiful Forms with all her might screamed, from which the hero almost deafened. He began to shout that the protagonist from this moment only her. The attitudes of the other two girls changed to disgust. The protagonist didn't understand how he could flirt with others when she was yelling like that. Miss started running towards the protagonist. She was talking about how they should be together forever. If she hugs the guy, he might as well die. A spider web appeared and got caught on Miss Beautiful Shape's leg, so she fell. A moment later, a web of spider webs appeared over her head, and when she fell, the girl was trapped. Puffy Form started screaming at Miss Slender Legs. She is also a cruel level demon, said that the barbarian can't even handle one man. Spider-Woman ordered the main character to be given to her for re-education. Beautiful Shapes said the guy is hers, and there's no way she's giving him up. Spider-Woman asked if the hero wanted to bear children for her, and he realized that if he answered wrong, he would die. The protagonist decided that the best strategy would be to take the initiative. He turned to the girl and asked who let her talk to him like that. Spider-Woman was very surprised at such words, and the protagonist asked if she liked him just because she wanted him to throw away her baby. The protagonist started to play drama, as if he just wanted to be used. The girl started to justify herself. The protagonist started to shout that they didn't even have a wedding. The girl started to apologize. Her attitude changed to friendly. At the same time, the audience enthusiastically discussed what was happening. At the same time, the commentator was just as enthusiastic about how the hero had melted the girl's heart. Suddenly, the face of the lantern changed. He began to enthusiastically talk about the fact that Miss Day first showed interest in a man. The protagonist thought about the fact that the girl came unexpectedly. He assumed that there might be other creatures in this place. Behind his back, the protagonist heard the voice of Miss Pretty Lips. She was right behind him and looked really creepy. She started to talk about how beautiful she was, but the hero interrupted her with a punch to the face. The others didn't realize what had just happened. The protagonist said he hated insecure people, and she could impress anyone with her looks. The girl was surprised and seemed a little upset. At that time, the commentator was shocked. He decided to show repeatedly on the monitor what the hero did. Everyone thought that this was the moment when the protagonist would end. Even the commentator himself assumed that there could be only one outcome. But suddenly the girl's face was embarrassed. The girl's legs shook as there was not a hint of fear in the heart of the protagonist. She couldn't understand why her heart started beating so hard. The protagonist received the source of evil. The ability allowed to put the creature into a state of ecstasy for 24 hours. The protagonist was surprised and pleased with such a mechanism. He looked at the girl, who was simply delighted. She couldn't understand what was happening to her. Abruptly, she bore down on the hero and said that she wanted to try it. Her attitude changed to obsession. She approached the hero and suggested they reunite. The guy said he'd rather not. Ms. Beautiful Forms entered the fight. She tried to cut the Beautiful Lips with her sword, but she blocked the blow with her jaw. It didn't help much as it flew far forward. At that time, the Spider-Woman said that no matter what others do, the protagonist will still belong to her. The protagonist pointed behind her back and said that the other girls had a different opinion. They pounced on the Spider-Woman in an attempt to win the fight for the hero. 3 brutal level monsters were now fighting for a place next to the hero. Truly, the love of these creatures meant something else entirely. The protagonist understood the rules, namely, if he chose one, then the other 2 would kill him. But if one won and stayed with the hero, she would also kill him. The protagonist decided to say that he is sorry that he cannot choose one of the contenders. He said that the battle does not cause him any feelings. Pretty Lips asked what the protagonist wanted to say. Yes, and Ms. Beautiful Shapes also wanted to know the answer to the question. The main character explained that even if the girls destroy the world at this rate, he will not be moved by it. The girls assumed that he wanted to leave them and prepared to attack. The protagonist said that he meant that he was a very suspicious person. He said that it would be better for each of the girls to spend a little time with him, so that their feelings would be well developed. The protagonist promised that once he had spent time with each girl, he would choose one of the girls. The protagonist said that as soon as he chose his favorite girl, he would take care of her and the children with all his might, which the spider girl liked very much. The protagonist took the beautiful lips by the hand and said that even if he died at her hands, he would do it with love. The girl was touched by this. The girl said that she would definitely prove that only she was fit to be the hero's assassin. Some strange creature was eating a corpse. It turned around as it heard footsteps, but the hero just kicked it on the head. The same got angry and said that the man looked like a suicide. It pounced on the protagonist, and he shouted and called out Miss Pretty Lips. She was behind the back of the monster, and with the words, how he dared to touch her man, very frightened the monster, which was far from cruel level. Then the girl struck the creature directly in the eye. It started to run away, leaving a trail of blood behind it. The girl handed the eye to the hero and said that it was a gift. It was a very valuable material of blue rank ghoul eye. The girl asked when they would enter the honeymoon room, and the hero said that he also had a lot to tell the girl. The guy used the ability of suggestion. The girl said that when the hero looks like this she can't kill him. The guy realized that this is her instinct. The protagonist said that Miss Lips is the strongest and sincere girl of all, and he would like to die at her hands. But the protagonist said the show wouldn't allow that. The protagonist said that the show wants the girl to do what the audience wants. The hero said that they can go beyond the show. She said the main character's words were logical, and the guy pointed his finger in the direction and said there was a monster there that scared him. The girl ran that way to check who dared to scare her pretty boy. The protagonist assumed that since the program was against him, there would be a surprise for her soon. In the distance stood a huge monster that looked like a bear. The girl was instantly there and ripped it in two. She thought about how attractive the main character was and how she wanted to taste him. The time of ecstasy passed. The girl's consciousness began to clear. She didn't realize what had just happened. Her attitude moment looked smeg to murderous, and the protagonist realized that time was up. The hero asked the spider woman if everything was okay. The girl said that after touching the protagonist, she feels an intoxicating sensation. The protagonist said that he was thinking about the girl's words. The girl hugged the hero and said that if he chooses someone else, they will definitely kill him. She promised that she will always protect the hero, but she needs a child from him. The girl said that if the hero does not give an answer now, she will kill him. But the guy said that the offer is tempting, but he has something to say. The girl asked what he had to say, and the hero said that if the spider woman wants a child with him, she should protect him properly. Miss Prettylegs agreed. He should be intact. The protagonist told the girl in the girl's ear that no one in the trial cares, and they want to kill him. He asked the girl, shouldn't such a program be interrupted? At that time, Miss Beautiful Lips started yelling at the hero. The spider girl asked why the girl came and asked the hero to stand behind her. The protagonist explained that he rejected her, and she came for revenge. The girl pounced on the guy, but the spider attacked her in midair, making her attack stop. She was angry at the spider, but her look changed when she saw Miss Slender Legs protecting the protagonist. The protagonist said she shouldn't do that, and Miss Pretty Lips said the spider woman was breaking the rules like that. She pulled out a gun and intended to kill the spider. True to her word, the girl quickly released the web and easily immobilized her opponent. That didn't help for long, and the evil woman got out of her shackles and headed straight for the spider woman, blocking her ranged attacks. Miss Pretty Lips struck a blow with her sword that scratched the spider woman's face a bit, making her furious. The girl demanded to give up his main character, and the spider woman promised that she would kill the girl. Between them began a battle. All this was watched by the hero, who provoked it. Behind the back heard the voice of Miss Beautiful Forms. The hero turned around and realized that she had already come. The girl said that she was waiting for him, and he never came to spend time with her. The girl swung her weapon, as she thought the hero had lied to her. The guy started to pull out his arm, and asked if it was possible, but in a moment his arm was cut off, and the hero was left with 10 XP out of 100. He fell down, and the girl said that the hero reminded her of someone from the past. The girl said that in those times, she was not in this world and worked as a butcher. Then she was fat, and no one looked at her. Then the girl met a man who admired her. It was her first time. The guy gave the girl contraband and asked her to help. He used it, and she ran away with the contraband from armed men. After surviving, she overheard a conversation where her lover was talking about being sick around the girl. She pointed outside the door, and the man said he should say a few kind words to her, and she would follow him to the ends of the earth. She then stormed in and killed the man and his brother. The girl said that what the hero said was very similar to what the man said. She liked it. She intended to do to the hero what she had done to the man. The protagonist said that in that case, she shouldn't have held his hand. He used a touch of evil, and later he moved on to suggestion. He asked if the girl remembered her name. She wondered. The protagonist said that she had participated in so many episodes, but her name had never been mentioned. The protagonist explained why this was so. It was because she was being used as a soulless tool on the show. The protagonist said he should start killing. He said she should kill everyone who uses it. The girl shouted with all her might, and the others noticed it, but she was already in front of them, and was ready to kill her rivals. There were 30 seconds left till the end of the program, and the hero started to crawl as far as possible. The hero's health was constantly decreasing due to blood loss. He already had 5 XP. He picked up the spider's paw, and picked up the hand of the mutilated girl, as well as he was able to get the purple equipment Fierce Ripper. All the girls looked at the hero, and couldn't understand what he was doing. He also wished everyone a pleasant viewing experience. The hero ran out of XP, but along with that the gear ran out, and he won. Miss Day's attitude changed to disorganization. At that time Miss Beautiful Shape was in despair. She heard the hero's voice asking her when was the last time she lived for herself. The commentator was talking about how incredible it was that the hero was able to win. The viewers started demanding a refund. The commentator reminded that the girl's ratings would go down as the tape would be archived. Suddenly a chain appeared. A huge weapon fell near the commander. It was Miss Form, who stood right in front of him. Other girls also surrounded the commentator. They said that no one else needed this show. The audience watched this with interest. The commentator hinted to the girls that they shouldn't do such a thing. Suddenly everyone looked in one direction and stopped talking. Even the noisy spectators were quiet. The commentator asked why Ms. Laziness came. He said that if he knew, he would have met Ms. Laziness beforehand. She said they had 10 seconds as she didn't like big crowds. The commentator didn't understand, and the girl started counting down. The spectators started to run away in panic, and after a moment, the whole place was empty. The commentator asked what happened. Ms. Laziness demanded all the information about the hero, and the flashlight said he only had a paper level. The girl didn't care, and demanded what she asked for. The commentator kneeled down and provided all the information. She looked at it and read it carefully. The girl said she was leaving and asked her to pretend like she wasn't even here. She was momentarily upset in midair. Miss Beautiful Lips was surprised that the girl paid attention to the character. At that time, Miss Form's axe appeared near the commentator's body. He yelled at the girl, as he thought it was unlikely that she would want to antagonize the crew. She, on the other hand, started yelling about how no one would stop her. At the time, a peddler in the main city of Hate was washing a wall. He complained that it was all the main character's fault. Behind him, a man ordered the guy to shut up and get on with his work. It was a tongue-tied parallel-level monster. The guy started apologizing and kept working. The monster complained that the humans could only eat when drained. Torgash thought about how one day he too would become a master. On the test gate were the most difficult tests passed, and suddenly there was a test without killing Do Not Disturb, the only passed test of the brutal level. The merchant was very surprised that someone managed to pass such a level test. The hero successfully completed the quest. He passed it with excellence and was rewarded with 5,000 points. He received a purple chest. His level increased to 3, and he received 2 attribute values. Because the hero was the first to pass this challenge, he received 10 spirit points. Since the hero was at the top of the table, he was automatically teleported to the city of Negavesti. The protagonist noticed that the injury he had received had healed after the end of the story. The protagonist noticed that the city of Negaquest was not much different from the previous safe zone. The protagonist went to see what the purple chest was. He got the skill Demonic Affinity, which could save 1 XP and turn him into a demon for a while. The protagonist called the skill very life-threatening. Still, he decided to learn this skill, as it will definitely come in handy. The protagonist also started to look at other items in his inventory. A ferocious ripper that reduced the owner's HP by 1% every second. The protagonist was surprised, as the weapon was truly fierce. The protagonist was now at the parallel level. He pulled out a weapon that was imbued with aura, and its charge began to drop little by little. The protagonist realized that to use the weapon, he needed a lot of medicine. The monster came in, excited about his new toy. The protagonist used the breath of hatred and began to approach the monster, scaring it. The monster apologized for hurting the hero and hurried away. He ran very far away. The protagonist assumed it was the ability of the weapon and decided to put it away for the time being. The peddler waved to the hero and offered to be friends together. The protagonist remembered the guy. The same guy threw a bucket with all his might as he recognized the hero. He started yelling that the protagonist was the reason he was in this place. The hero apologized since it was his first game. The merchant couldn't understand how the newcomer became the most wanted criminal. The hero didn't know the answer himself and planned to ask someone from this world. The guy said that the hero was out of luck and decided to tell everything. The world consisted of safe zones and 4 districts: paper, parallel, strong and violent. The safe zone is guarded by a system, and even if you die there, nothing happens. The paper zone is a fairly easy zone where the penalty for death is only the loss of a few items. In the parallel zone, the influence of the system is less, and if you die there you can lose all items. But the strong level is a dangerous place where only the strongest players can be. There if you die you lose the whole level and all items. The guy advised never to go to a district that did not ask the hero. Players who were able to defeat a strong level boss could pass through customs by paying money. The protagonist asked, "What about the brutal level?" The man explained that today was the first time passing this level. You could get legendary purple items there, but it was impossible to get there through the portal. The man did not believe that someone could really pass the tests of the cruel level, because if you die there you die in reality. The protagonist realized that the man said that their city is in a terrible place, as dying in this city will be a lot of problems, as they are in a strong zone. The guy explained that if you complete the task the negativity index will be less, and they can get out. He had only 20 points. And the hero was very surprised. He had an infinite hate figure. The Negavesta capital was in chaos, and the more treacherous a person was, the more honorable he was. The guy explained that people like him with a small level of Negavesti were just bugs. At that time, the guy saw the monster catch the man and order him to come in with him. He pierced the guy's chest through with his hand. He said that if a man passed by he should go in and buy something. The guy explained that the local guys hate humans, and they need to be careful. He continued talking but noticed that the hero had disappeared. He finally found the store, and was standing at the entrance. The friend asked if the hero was crazy. He said that they should leave quickly, because if they were spotted by the monsters they would be finished. The protagonist went inside the store, and the friend called him suicidal. The protagonist was serious. The salesman was sitting behind the counter, and when he realized that a man had come in, he immediately became despondent. the protagonist said he wanted to buy a recovery potion. The monster said that one bottle would cost 500 points. The protagonist saw that the price of the potions was 50 points per bottle. The monster approached and said that the price was 10 times higher for humans. The vendor said it was too late to leave now, but the protagonist closed the doors and said he wasn't going to leave. The monster was a little surprised by this. He didn't understand what the hero was going to do. The protagonist drew his weapon, and with a precise blow cut the enemy in half. He was left with only half of his body, and asked the protagonist to stop. But the hero didn't listen and approached his enemy. The monster was incredibly frightened and asked to stop. He said that if the hero kills him, the city will not forgive him. The protagonist asked if the mayor would allow him to sell goods for 10 times the price. The monster did not know what to say. The hero did not wait and put a gun to the body of the monster. The protagonist proposed a solution, namely that the monster would sell him goods at a discount of 10%. The monster began to cry and promised that the guy will get a discount on everything. When the protagonist left the store, he was thanked and asked for more. The protagonist said he shouldn't be blamed, it was just self-defense. The protagonist bought 20 health and spirit potions each. The protagonist also bought a ghost cloak for 800 points instead of 8,000 points. The protagonist was yelling about how much he liked this place. At that time in the real world, a huge man was standing in a supermarket. He looked at one of the merchandise and reached for it. When he took the merchandise, a traveler's mark was visible on his hand. He was walking down the street with a full shopping bag. He was approached by a dog, who mentally told him that there was something this man needed to know. She told him that a man had been able to pass through the dungeons of the brutal level. This person's face immediately changed. He was one of the few who could pass the trials of a strong level player named Ming Xiaohua. At that time, the hero's friend was incredibly surprised. He was very shocked by the cloak that was worth as much as 8,000 points. The protagonist said that there was a good owner there, and he had discounted it. His friend's face immediately twisted when he heard about the discount, as this vendor used to make him buy potions for 500 points. He looked at the hero and assumed that he was the local tyrant, and if he was around him, he would get rich. The friend asked if he and the boss could communicate in the future. The protagonist said that he didn't need a little brother. The man started to take off his hood and talk about how he was the youngest. He made a serious face and offered to be the son of the hero. The protagonist's face was indescribable. He sat down and said that such insolence was unexpected. The guy offered to add him as a friend. The hero touched his mark to his, and now they became friends. The guy recognized the hero's name and said that if he needed help let him write, he would be happy to help. After saying that, the guy disappeared. The main character became interested in the communication system. The system notified that the limit of staying in another world has passed, and the hero will be returned back. In the real world it was evening. The protagonist was on the roof of a building. Exactly in 24 hours, he will be moved back to the game. The protagonist had spent 2 hours in the game world, but in the real world only 12 minutes had passed, which meant that the time ratio was 1 to 12. The protagonist took out an Izania potion that restored 30% of his health. The hero was happy that he could take the stuff with him back to the real world. He started drinking the recovery potion. When he finished, he threw away the bottle, which just started to dissolve into thin air. The protagonist noticed that the shelter on the other side was noisy. He looked directly at the buildings. At that time, the protagonist's friend was near the kids who were thanking and cheering the guy on. He was giving the kids candy and saying that he would probably be rich soon. A child asked him why he thought so, and he told them that he had found a wig and that he was a rich master. The children didn't believe their brother, as he had said such things more than once. The kid got angry and started pulling the kid's ears. He looked straight ahead and saw a familiar face. There was a hero walking. He was heading to the hospital. The nurses came out of the hospital. They were looking for the hero for half a day. He said he was breathing fresh air. The protagonist said that he would go to his board himself, and he did not need to be accompanied. The girls felt very sorry for the hero, as he was very good but with a terrible disease. The protagonist didn't know if those 5 slots of health and spirit helped him, but he hurried to his room. Upon opening the doors, he was shocked as there was Ms. Laziness lying on his bed. The protagonist looked carefully at the bed, where lay a very beautiful girl playing a console. He assumed that his illness was developing and headed to the nightstand. He opened one drawer, took out medicine, and poured himself a few pills. The protagonist said in the hearing that this is the most realistic hallucination after having brain problems. The protagonist talked about the girl being a devil who couldn't pass the first level of the game's 7 deadly sins. The girl was very upset about losing. The protagonist drank some medicine and said that in about a minute the girl should disappear. She shoved the app in the guy's face and said that if he could win, let him show it. The protagonist started touching the girl's body. She looked at him with the app. The protagonist thought that his illness had worsened greatly since the hallucination seemed real. The girl said that the source of evil was awakened by some retard. The protagonist started thinking the girl feeling everything as if she was real. Her patience ran out, and there was a commotion. The nurses left the room thinking about the lights being turned off. The girl warned that she was counting to 3. If the hero didn't become adequate, she would hit him. The girl said she was too lazy to count to 3. The guy kneeled down and told the woman not to be so fierce. He said he was going to pass the game. A nurse knocked on the hero's door and asked if the guy was okay. He said he was naked and that he was asleep. At that time, the hero had beaten the console. The girl was angry that she looked so funny and wanted to kill the person who created the game. The protagonist said that the depiction of the sin of laziness in the old version was even worse. The protagonist explained that people usually imagine horrible things as horrible, not as beautiful women. The hero said hello to his guest of honor, Mrs. Laziness. The girl praised the protagonist's mental stats and said he was worthy of the source of evil. The protagonist asked what happened to others who awakened this mechanism. The girl explained that people always died. The girl came to remind the hero to be careful. If he continues to perform well, they will see each other again. The protagonist asked a few questions about the source of evil and how she got into the real world. The girl said that she was a special case and even so was afraid to stick out much, and about the source of evil advised the hero not to die to find out everything. The protagonist assumed that he didn't have any arguments for refusal. He took a closer look at the item she had purposely left for the hero. This item could summon the original owner for help only once. The hero was POM for a strong level test. The task was to take a guidebook and bring it to one place. The protagonist was surprised that there were a lot of people in the multiplayer mode. When the hero went in, he saw a huge number of people. They started looking at the hero to examine him. He passed by saying that people would let him pass. People didn't understand what a level 3 man was doing here. Someone opened the doors with a kick. This person immediately turned to the newcomers. He was level 10 and asked them not to cling to him. People were discussing this person, who was from the Dragon Union. The man with dyed hair said that the newcomers should listen to him, and then they would pass. The guys immediately started praising their new boss. He turned his attention to one man and pointed his finger at the hero. The protagonist didn't understand what it was about, but the man approached the protagonist point blank and asked what was wrong with his level. The colored man didn't understand what the wallet was doing here, and the hero said he was just unlucky. The man told him to stay out of the way and just watch the professionals work. The protagonist smiled and said it would be even easier that way. The man's head was pierced by something flying at tremendous speed. People were shocked. The glasses fell, and the traveler was instantly killed. It was a revolver shot. The man who fired said that the man was late and broke a rule. The man greeted the guys at the afterlife station. The men were scared as a pro player had just died in front of them. The man advised everyone to reread the handbook to know the rules. The main character now understood the meaning of the words director can kill any player with one shot. In the handbooks there were 3 orders: simple, a little more complicated, and red, the most complicated. The man explained that they had to complete that task and then they could get out alive. One of the men tore out one page thinking it would be easy. He was ordered to deliver a strong level boss, a hell wolf. He started to say he wouldn't do it, and moments later was killed. The man explained that Article 5 said that the order could not be refused. He looked at the players and asked them not to forget. The player's corpse started to disappear, and the man asked not to break the rules from now on and asked the players to start. People were scared as their orders were very difficult. At that time, they heard the voice of one guy who said he had an easy order. This man tore out the blue page. He needed to deliver food to the rotating skyscraper in room 306. He ran to complete the task. The others looked at each other. The protagonist called this kind of reaction lightning fast. The stipulation stated that express delivery, and that once received, the order could not be cancelled. The protagonist decided that there was nothing wrong with picking up someone else's simple order. One of the men ordered the newcomer to look in his handbook. The protagonist assumed the man was the famous Xiaoming Xian. The guys mocked the protagonist for his low level and suggested that he exchange orders. The protagonist smiled and thought about these words. The protagonist asked if he could pass the trials below the cruel level. The girl explained that yes, so also the trials will become harder by a level for other players. In any case, the protagonist will also have problems. The protagonist agreed to trade with the man. The protagonist showed his item. He had a red task. He was called a Mancer, and the protagonist started showing other pages that were also red. The guys doubted that the protagonist could survive. The hero showed that he had a third red assignment. The guy in the green sweater was shocked, and the hero asked who wanted to trade with him. The people immediately backed off and asked him not to even touch their orders. As a result, all the players started to shun the protagonist. The hero assumed that now everyone would pin him down. At the time, a man dabbling with a revolver, he said that for the first time he sees that all the tasks were red, and expressed his regret, because of the low level of the hero will not survive. The protagonist said that he could do all the tasks to make the man happy. The old man said that since the hero was so confident, he could answer any question. The protagonist said that it is a pity to do only simple tasks. He made a serious look and asked, "For red tasks the final reward is higher, right?" The old man pretended not to understand the question. The protagonist assumed that if he completed all the red tasks it would cause financial hardship for them. So the fact that he was a newcomer must have pleased the old man. The old man praised the hero's self-confidence and said that he had hidden potential. The man explained that yes, the hero correctly assumed that difficulty determines the reward. The protagonist said goodbye as he had no desire to befriend his grandfather's revolver. The protagonist repeated the words that he only had one question. The old man took off his hat saying that it was quite good. He didn't expect anything else from a traveler who had experienced such a thing. He wished the hero good luck. At that time the protagonist stepped outside the building. To his right stood some man with a flashlight, which blinded the hero. The bald man told him that he had as many as 3 blue orders and offered the newcomer to trade. The man explained that the hero could not fulfill the red order and asked to give it to him. The protagonist thought about the rating of this man, and level 15. The man smiled and said that if the hero had any complaints, he could challenge him. The protagonist knew this man as someone who had challenged a strong level dungeon. The bald man saw that the hero had heard of the man and asked him to name his solution. The protagonist showed the man his book, and the man already thought he had gotten his red assignments, but the hero ripped out the page, then got the order. Walking away, the main character apologized as his arm twitched. The man told the hero to stop and tried to attack him from the back. The hero instantly summoned his sword. This scared the man, and he stopped right before he struck. The hero asked what the bald man wanted to say. The man smiled and said that even a man of his level was easy to negotiate with. The protagonist assumed there was a misunderstanding between the two, and they laughed themselves silly together. The protagonist said goodbye to the man and said he was leaving. The bald man's face changed, and he decided to find another victim to get a better reward. Baldy was surrounded by other players. He was determined to deal with them. The man laughed at the fact that the guys wouldn't leave him alone. One of the enemies said that no one could disobey the orders of the elders, and reminded that if Baldy died here, he would lose everything. The crowd of players started to attack. A man grabbed one of the players by the head, which surprised the enemies. The bald man held the guy's head above the ground and asked the guys what they wanted from him. When he let go of his hand, the player's body fell and started to dissolve into the air, which meant that he was dead. Baldy looked at his opponents and smiled. He decided to kill them all and take the red missions. The protagonist needed to deliver the doll to the psycho boss. He was already at the gate. The protagonist assumed the doll was a lost and found. Someone had taken the doll, and it was lost. The protagonist thought they treated the customers badly because they didn't even give them a bag. The protagonist was already at the right address, and he wondered if crazy people really lived here. He pressed the call button and started to say that he had a package for a crazy lady. There was silence in response, and a moment later there was a scream that made him shudder. At that time, another man was given the task of delivering the fodder. He was hanging suspended from a moth and screaming about not fulfilling the order. The entity said that the man had brought very little fodder, and to get enough of it you had to kill him. The guy started to fall right into a pack of hungry wolves. Another person had an assignment to deliver a temple bell. She was thanked for her help and surrounded on all sides. She asked what kind of gratitude this was. One of the zombies said they needed the girl for burial. One more task was to deliver a love letter. It was very easy, and the man did it quickly. There was also a task to deliver medicine to the physician, and it was also very easy, so the man coped with it quickly. The protagonist was thinking about how big the difference between simple orders and complex ones was. A simple growl had taken 20% of his HP off. The protagonist was glad, as he hadn't saved the healing potions for nothing. He drank one and healed to full health. Coughing a bit, he headed to the bell again. He said it was a courier. In response, he heard unintelligible sounds, and at the end a word about him coming in. The protagonist assumed that a nice girl was waiting for him, and said that the gate was closed and he could not enter. All he got in response was static from the intercom. The protagonist decided to use his own method and called for a weapon. He made a slashing blow at the gate and easily went inside. Opening the door, he introduced himself and said he was from the delivery. What he saw shocked him. He saw a very messy room and a girl who sat watching the noises of the television. The protagonist apologized for disturbing him and asked the girl to take her order. She, on the other hand, told the protagonist to be quiet because the smiley face had just fallen asleep and he almost woke him up. She showed the smiley face, which she called very cute. The protagonist said he had a bright future ahead of him and held out the toy he had to deliver. The girl's face was sad. The girl asked if it was a laughing doll and said that Xiao Xiao was now in her hands. The girl started to contradict herself. She thought that the hero had decided to trick her and steal Xiao Xiao. She called him a liar and knocked over the doll that the hero had brought. The girl started screaming that the person trying to steal her child should die. She went to attack the hero with a knife. She swore to kill the protagonist, and he saw the doors and went to them, turned the handle and left the house, closing the doors just before the girl jumped out after him. He started holding the door, and she banged on it with all her might. The hero stepped back, but the knocking didn't stick. The protagonist had a little bit of spent HP, and the door will not last long. The room he found himself in was completely different from the ones he had seen before. At that time, the doors started to crack and the protagonist felt as if it was drawn by a child. The drawing said that the girl hoped her mom would be happy. The protagonist looked at the calendar where a whole 100 days had passed without Xiao Xiao. The protagonist felt sorry for the girl, who was looking for Xiao Xiao for a very long time. Flipping through the calendar, there was seen that more than 2,000 days had passed. At that time, from this place fell a business card of the company for which the hero worked within the assignment. The hero assumed they'd gone too far in their lies. The girl stabbed the doors with a knife. The protagonist thought that for the girl to accept the courier normally, she would have to calm down. The protagonist appreciated the room he was in. He noticed the closet and had an idea. At that time, the girl broke through the doors with her hand and was able to open the doors, and the first thing she said was for the guy to give her back Xiao Xiao. Her face changed instantly. The hero changed into the dresses in the closet and said the word mom, pretending to be a girl. The mother was shocked that her girl had grown up so fast. The girl hugged the hero and said that she was very happy. The main character said that it was not like that. He said that the woman was wrong, and taking a knife from her, he stabbed himself in the stomach, asking if the girl wanted to protect him. The mother started repeating the word no. She remembered how the girl was drawing a picture. Behind the girl there was a man who asked her a question. As soon as the girl turned around, at the same moment her look changed, and the doll was splattered with bloodstains. The mother went out to call her daughter for dinner, but what she saw horrified her. The events with the hero reminded the girl of the terrible past, and she began to scream in pain. In the past, the girl went to a company where they promised to get her anything. The mother asked if they had seen her daughter, and told a little about when she went missing. The old man said they had seen the child. The mother started begging the man to tell her everything. The old man said it would cost a lot of money. The girl fell to her knees and started begging. She promised to do whatever was asked of her. The old man said he would take the girl's mind and her daughter would come back. He started pulling the woman's mind, saying that he was sure she would become a regular customer. The girl was in a trance and asked the old man to stop. The protagonist saw the woman trying with all her might to resist the hypnosis. She talked about how her daughter had just left and begged not to wake her up. The protagonist said that self-deception is the idea of creating another person's handiwork. The woman begged not to be woken up. She was desperate, but she heard her daughter's voice. She saw her and couldn't believe it, but it was actually the protagonist with a Xiao Xiao doll. The protagonist congratulated the girl for regaining some of her sanity. She asked in surprise if she was awake. The protagonist said that he was asked to deliver the doll by his boss, and the girl should figure out for herself what that means. The protagonist explained that there are better things in the world than self-deception. He advised the girl to pick up the delivery and leave a good review. The hero was promoted, and the pay increased by 100%. The hero said goodbye to the girl. She asked him to wait. The girl asked if her daughter was alive. The protagonist advised the girl to go and see for herself if her daughter was alive. She opened the window and put the doll on the windowsill. She asked Xiao Xiao to wait for her. The statue began to wobble and eventually broke into many pieces. The old man took the head of the statue and expressed his regret for losing a good customer. The old man smiled and said aloud that it was time to start the second act of the play. He told Xiao Xiao to speak. A growl was heard in one room. At that time, a man received his package at the fitness center. Inside was fried and greasy food. He could not help himself when he saw such tasty food. He drooled and bore into the bowl of food. After a while, he finished. He looked at the vendor with his crazy eyes and started running towards him. The man tried to run away, but was eventually caught by the fat man. At that time, the man delivering the love letter was lying on the ground. The girl killed the other players and approached him. The girl asked who the man was who wrote this letter that had the word pig written on it. The man started to say that it was not him. The girl got angry and said that in that case he was of no use. So the guy was killed. The bald man was running and thinking that even with easy orders there are problems. Baldy was frustrated that he could only find one red-ranked job. The assignment turned out to be delivering love to a very powerful creature. The man stopped because a hunch told him there was an ambush. He decided to take a look at what kind of monster was in this challenge, and in that place was the hero who was taking off his shirt. Baldy cried out aloud in surprise. The main character looked in his direction and was also surprised. He said he saw the bald man who was hiding in the grass. The man saw the sign of an excellent worker and realized that the protagonist was able to fulfill T-Red order. The protagonist said he had done it easily, and when asked if the hero had any other orders, the man asked if the bald man wanted to try. The bald man assumed that the hero was the man who had passed the brutal level tests. The man asked if the hero would like to cooperate with him. He explained that the monsters would eventually open a hunt for couriers, and for this reason, it would be beneficial for them to cooperate. He offered the hero to familiarize himself with the contents of his order as a sign of trust. The protagonist took a closer look and had a troubled look, which the bald man noticed. The protagonist pulled out his order and said that now the bald man would understand. The recipient turned out to be the same, but the protagonist needed to deliver a light. The bald man said they should stick together. At the time, a man distraught with food was wandering nearby. Baldy told the hero to move on while he dealt with this monster. The hero told him to wait, and he was very surprised. The protagonist put on his cloak and told the bald man to follow him, because then they would be able to pass without taking damage.